Greetings and welcome to earGROUND New Voices Amplified. My name is Plot Mhako. I'm super excited to be joining you today because I'll be speaking to a legendary man, an iconic man who has impacted the continent and the globe through his works, through his passion and his love for music and humanity. This is one man whose life and music have done so much for generations. I've spoken to a lot of artists, older generation of artists, and also new the Zim dancehall, hip hop, and so many that have said it was because of Elder Jabulani that I've managed to make it through this way. And enough respect, Elder. Thank you so much for joining us. And also joined in by my co-host, Don Dada. Welcome, Don Dada.
Hi, big up yourself. Big bad plot. It's such a pleasure to be in the building with you, my brother. And of course, as you said, we're with the living legend, Elder Ras Jabulani, aka Trevor Hall. For me, that's uncle. You know what I mean? Because this is a man who's always been around in my life from when I was a little baby, man. And for a whole bunch of artists that grew up around him, people that just love reggae music have been influenced by him, not just in Zimbabwe, South Africa, but across the entire African continent. This is a true reggae ambassador. So it's a privilege to be speaking with Elder Ras Jabulani right now.
Yes, I know. We give thanks and praises, especially for the big up. You know, to do is do what I love best, trying to help others. And, you know, music is my passion, especially reggae music and what goes around with it. And, you know, like Plot was saying that the humanitarian side, and as a Rasta man, it's been a journey using the vehicle of reggae music, and it's brought I home to the continent and given I that, you know, that chance to really deliver what I say as Rastafari should deliver for the upliftment, the encouragement, and the high development of the continent and the people of Africa.
Wow, bless. Wow. I'll take you back to your childhood. Your parents are originally from Jamaica, but you grew up in the United Kingdom, you know. And whilst you were there, you know, reading through, you know, different material online, it says that you were a bit not happy with a lot of the goings on, especially representation of people of color. And you and your colleagues, you decided to form an organization which became, you know, a platform that helped a lot of Black and African communities, you know, get a voice. Could you just take us back to that era, to that period?
Well, basically, growing up in England that time, from the 50s, 60s, it was very hostile for us as even children. I've got scars which I get from first time going to school, you know, being in snow and so forth. You know, you think you're playing with these white youths, snowball and thing. They put a stone in the snow and threw it at me. I've got big scar right here in the middle of my nose here, you see. So, and then, you know, as when I was 13, at that time you had to be drafted into either the military, the Air Force, or the Navy, and become a cadet. So I loved the idea of flying, so I became an air cadet. At the age of 13, I was flying in airplanes, and you know, just before I got the age of 15, I managed, because, you know, being an achiever again, it wasn't a good thing amongst a lot of the white youths, because when I was just before my 15th Earth Strong, I got the opportunity to co-pilot a private jet from England to France and back with ranking officers on board. On my return, feeling very, high, jubilant and so forth, and, I achieved this. The white boys, some of them, it was their fathers who were on that flight, and they felt a way that they could not do that, but it's because they were underachievers.
Yeah.
And it started like a pillow fight. Next thing, I'm cut with glass and rare and so forth. So I said, no, it's like, I'm gonna get killed under friendly fire now. So after even mashing up some of them, the next morning I had to walk off the camp, and I never returned again to the Air Force, even though after finishing school, the Air Force did want me to still join, but I said, no, I can't bother with that. Still going on, we were going through a lot of hostilities where we are being denied as Black youths. In those early days as well, you still saw sometimes, and this was now even in the late 60s into the early 70s, you would still see certain signs where they would say, no Blacks, no Irish, no dogs, even on park benches, and you felt the denial of you to be allowed to enter into certain places and things. And by the time I was 17, we had my brethren and sisters, and we had enough of it. So we set up our own organization, youth organization, calling it Matafankanta, it meant come guard yourself against self-destruction. Mainly because a lot of youths were losing their way, going into all kind of things. Hard drugs was there, you had things like heroin, cocaine, and then what was coming in with crack and the alcohol again. So you find a lot of the youths were into abusing themselves and so forth. So we then, because under the teachings of our elders, some of them my elders were Excaviites, some of them Hoelites and so forth. So Rastafari was a big opening and guiding light for I at that time. And with that, we moved forward, set up a center. By I was 19, we squat and took over a building and turned that into the first Black self-help center in the country. So, we were busy trying to uplift ourselves, and our main focus, especially mine, was Africa. So this is where I am from at that time.
Wow, quite interesting there. And you initiated that. At what point did you get involved in music?
Well, where I started music actually in church, because it was the only interest to keep me going to church. Because I was 10 years old and we were forced to go to church. And like we say, we go to church to search. And my uncle was running the band at the church. He was one of the deacons in the church. At the same time, his band was like, we used to play rhythm and blues and all these, and this was in the 60s. So, then by 68, reggae music emerged and so forth. So still being a youth, By the time I was 13 now, I started selecting as well, set up my little sound system. And then I was, now and then playing drums in the band. Sometimes because my uncles and my mother, they were running the West Indian club. So I would be DJing and so forth at the club, even for, just in my early teens. By the time I was 16, because I was already working, I completed my O levels when I was 15, and then I started an apprenticeship working on the building site as a carpenter and joiner. So I could earn enough money to buy more equipment, buy band instruments and so forth. By the time I was 16, I buy out half of my uncle's sound system. He had one of the biggest sound systems in England that time. Actually, yes. He had the first sound system and studio, Uncle Shelley. That his company was called Third World Records. And from there, when I was 16, I had a band running, sound system running, and I had a dance and drama group as well. So, and then I was even going into schools and community groups and centers teaching dance and drama, at that age, at 16.
Wow. Before I pass on to my colleague, Don Dada, I want to find out, you decided to move to Manzini. You came to Africa. And what's your memory of that flight back home with a decision to stay and never return and live in UK?
Well, in a way, I started to prepare myself. What kind of made me, we was very much advancing certain programs towards gearing up ones and ones to come to Africa and as youths. Now, I had done did a little work with Bob Marley, and before Bob came to Africa in 1980, he told us, he wanted me to go to Tough Gong in Jamaica because he did love my band and he loved how we used to play. Right. So then he wanted me to say, after him come back from Africa, we will arrange and go to Jamaica and do some recording. But when he came forward again from Africa, he just tell me, Jati, Africa, not even bother think about go Jamaica, Africa. And through him, they'd see what we were doing as youth them time and say, it would be a good thing for you to leave as soon as we can, because right now he had said that he was investing now in Africa, and that's the thing where I look for go to. And right, so I started to organize myself a way to just make my way to come to Africa. And a lot of my brethren.
Before you continue, I was saying I'll interject you a bit. You mentioned Bob Marley, the legend, and it's very interesting that you had an interaction with the Bob Marley. What do you remember him?
Well, you see, with Bob, you see, like in those days, we had, my band was called the Far Eye Band. And we had a lot of collaboration and work with artists that were coming in from Jamaica to England. Bob was a regime, not all the time he would be moving with his band. And Bob had a lot of concern about his people and also the welfare of his people. These were the things that strike me about Bob, a little way different to how a lot of the other artists them would do. Because what I noticed with Bob, if him see certain thing, he wouldn't waste time to see how he can put some strength to make things a little bit better for ones and ones. Now and then, there was time when I met him in London. He had a flat in Kensington, and there we used to meet sometime when he come to. We had the last time I did a little collaboration with him, I was playing percussion. It was at a 12-tribe celebration dance. And then that's when he did tell us that he was going back to come into Africa. We did a lot of work in terms of raising funds and awareness for the liberation struggle on the continent. And because we were part of the Pan-African Youth Movement at that time, this is where brethren like Bob and so forth would kind of link with us, because we were kind of what they would say progressive thinking youths, not just thinking, but we actually did what we like we said, we put our money where our mouth is, So that was the kind of relationship that I was having with Bob and a few of the other artists as well.
That's so awesome. That's so awesome, Uncle. Especially speaking about your history with Bob, I think it's quite a strong linkage to the revolutionary side of your works and to the musical side of your works. And I think Bob had that same streak within him. So it's quite an interesting take to hear from you. I wanted to ask you about just to rewind the question again about coming to Zimbabwe, and I wanted to ask about how was the reception for you coming to Zimbabwe and the works that you were doing? How was the reception of the people in Zimbabwe, the governments of Zimbabwe? Like right now in South Africa, we are going through a period of a lot of xenophobia and so on. Interesting to know how Zimbabweans had accepted or not, how they had reacted to somebody from the outside.
Well, put it this way. During my early days, we had a few Zimbabweans coming through the center in England. So I had a few collaboration with some of the Zimbabweans who were in exile at that time. This was in the late 70s. And 79, I actually met Robert Mugabe and also Joshua Nkomo. This was at the time when they came forward to do the Lancaster Agreement negotiations and so forth. And we were asked to, I was actually asked to put on a presentation with my dance and drama group and so forth, and organize a function for like a reception for Bob and Joshua. And when we met, I was also then asked to give a speech, and I handed them an envelope because, we made contributions raised and so forth and so forth. So because what we did with a lot of the liberation leaders and so forth, anytime they came through, we received them in a certain way and tried to see how we could assist, And this was my kind of, relationship I started with Zimbabweans from the, like we said, the liberation struggle time. We had a lot of South Africans coming through, a lot of others from the continent that we met and were doing things. I used to do things as well at the Africa Center in London and Harambee Center in Birmingham. And that way we kept that link. Now, coming to Zimbabwe, I was actually living in Botswana. And I had organized in '86, I had organized the biggest celebration for the Botswana independence, which was the 20th anniversary. And I had invited Thomas Mapfumo, and we had various other Zimbabwean artists at that time, Wells Fargo and so forth, were living in Botswana, and we worked together on that. Thomas also invited me to come forward to Zim, and then after he returned, I came for a visit in '86, not too long after we did this in October. And I liked Zimbabwe and so forth. And then the following year, I was asked to come to Zimbabwe and do a fundraising tour to help raise funds for a teachers training college. That's where I now did pack up my sound system, my PA equipment, for band equipment and so forth, put it on the train, came through to Zimbabwe, and I've been there ever since. And it's about, what now? 35 years now.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, definitely 35. Yeah, I could say, because I'm 34. And I mean, you've been a family friend of mine from before I was born. So yeah. I would like to ask you about the relationship between reggae music and our freedom fighters, and not just in Zimbabwe, but in South Africa, Botswana, because, you know, in South Africa, reggae music was obviously a pivotal force fighting the apartheid regime. And post the fall of the apartheid regime, it feels like reggae music has fallen to the wayside and so on. And you're one of the founders of building the reggae culture and the culture of Rastafari in Zimbabwe, and I could say Botswana as well. I mean, you have a long history in all these places. So I'd like to have your take on that, and why in different regions is the reactions different?
Well, one of the reasons in different regions, different areas, reaction may be a bit different to reggae music, because reggae in those early days were synonymous to revolution. And you would find that a lot of the liberation forces, the comrades were inspired a lot by reggae music in those early days. And like I said, a few of us as artists, it was known that we used to assist where we could and give that upliftment. So because of how the politics in each country was being controlled and so forth, you'll find that in South Africa, reggae was seriously subdued. Zimbabwe, to an extent, reggae was given a lot more air in the early 80s. What I found that it was more the people who were pushing reggae, because even when I came there, Mzenda, who was vice president at that time, was very much supportive towards the music industry, and especially what I found, he loved reggae and gave a lot towards, you know, uplifting reggae in those times when he was in that time. And what Bob Marley did when he came for the independence, no other artist that I know of has done what Bob Marley did. Chartering 2 airplanes, one carrying equipment as cargo plane, and the other carrying the artists and crew. His equipment, he actually left most of the equipment in Africa. Zimbabwe got a bulk of the PA and so forth. So it was where you see the kind of input, and then you had quite a few artists now coming in after the Bob Marley coming in, and it was like for Zimbabwe, other than Ethiopia, became like another mecca for ones who could make it to Africa and be able to come, especially as reggae artists, to come and full joy and play reggae music in Zimbabwe. Botswana, reggae wasn't so strong. Again, a lot of the influence from South Africa. Even when I was in South Africa, in Swaziland, I started playing reggae. A lot of people thought I was a sangoma when I first entered Swaziland because of my locks and my beard and everything. They couldn't believe, that this one, even the minister, I had big problems with the Minister of Education, because when I started the youth center in Swaziland, in Manzini, it was the first youth center and started to uplift a lot of the destitute youths and bring in certain youth programs. I did initiate the national program for youths also in Swaziland. And the minister, he couldn't believe that a Rasta man could be educated and capable of doing the things that I was doing. So being under influence of the Catholic Church and thing, he was always fighting me instead of encouraging what we were inputting into the country for the people, especially for education and skills training, So yeah, we had mixed reactions in Mozambique. What I found in Mozambique, language was a slight barrier in terms of Portuguese was the first language on people. So English wasn't so strong, and it wasn't that much that could understand reggae music on the fullness.
I'll do the last part.
All right.
Not a problem. I think I was just asking about your humanitarian works that you've been working on them your entire life. You've had so many different projects that you've championed, and I just wanted to know: is there difficulty, or do you choose to do the humanitarian work separate from music, or do you find that they work better when they're put together? How do you go about juggling both of these balls?
Well, from the younger times when I was doing, I found that when I was doing more community arts works, right, it brought me into seeing a lot of the problems that we were facing during, within the communities, and using arts, music, because I used to even do murals and things like that. And my skills again, I trained as a carpenter and joiner. So it got me into working also with, using my woodworking skills as well in the communities. And what I find, I did a lot of fundraising and awareness raising just from doing shows, concerts, and so forth, and building development projects and so forth with youths and communities like that. So I find that using my music and arts, it helped me a lot getting into the communities and working in various areas. What got me the name Jabulani was when in Swaziland, in Manzini, I was approached by some elders and youths at the youth center. Because some of the youths, they were going to school in Manzini. But in their area, in the rural area, during the rainy season, there was always flooding, and youths were drowning and elders were also drowning, trying to cross the river. So I was asked to help to build a footbridge and over the river. So I took some of the youths with me, and we went to that village. We spent the 2 days. Actually, we did it in 2 days, building the footbridge and so forth, the whole of Saturday and most part of Sunday morning. Then in late afternoon, Sunday, when we had finished, the chief, they slaughtered an ox and enough komboti and so forth was brewed, and then I started drumming. People were dancing and everything was nice and thing. The Nduna came to me and brought me to the chief. The chief, they all sat me down and said, no, they're going to name me Jabulani because I brought joy and happiness to the people in the village. So, you know, that's how I got the name, by doing again what we said of humanitarian works, you know?
Yes. That's so beautiful, so beautiful. And I think it's the first time I've heard that story. And I know for a lot of people, they may not have known how you got the name Jabulani. So that is quite an amazing thing right there. I think my last question, Ras Jabulani, would basically have to do with Rastafari and the spread of Rastafari. How have you seen from the beginning? I mean, you've seen its development in the southern region of Africa, and you see as it's moving forward right now. Where do you think it's heading to? Do you think it's growing? Do you think it's getting stronger? What's your take of the movement right now?
Well, I see Rastafari is growing, and it's growing stronger in certain ways and forms. But at the same time, there's a lot of division that has crept in. Personally, I feel a lot of the division is actually orchestrated, mainly because the movement Rastafari began through liberation, and I'm talking from slavery and colonization times. In this time, the liberation side has changed a lot, right? So the direction for a lot of ones and ones, they don't see that we're in another mode of liberation, right? Technologically, psychologically, mentally, and physically. Spiritually, there has been a lot of what I would say a certain spiritual upliftment, but at the same time, a lot of spiritual subduance has been going on, where you will find where a lot of the houses and mansions are being infiltrated, and a lot of destruction is coming in, especially amongst elders and the priests. And there's become a distance between elders and the youths, mainly because of direction. The youths are looking at another way of finding a better life. Reggae music played a serious part in the development of the Rastafari movement. But since there's been a change within the lyrical content, and reggae music also of late has been subdued in certain respects. You don't hear reggae so much on radios and so forth. And it seems like it's been discouraged in terms of where a lot of the liberation kind of reasoning through the lyrics are not being played, especially like the youngsters who are coming up who are relating to what is going on now in this dispensation. Yeah. So it's like what I'm seeing now is that whilst you see there's a serious growth on the continent, we're now trying to look more into building the Rastafari and the Pan-African minded people, try to bring a more unification again, because what has tend to happen over the last 15 years, there's been a kind of what I would say, since one started to find another kind of spirituality within Rastafari, it's been taken on a more righteous than thou kind of level. And you found that there's ones who are even separating from themselves, like from their own people, from other Rastas. You know what I'm saying? To be seen to be the chosen few, if you see what I'm saying, right? And they want to create what they see Rasta should be in their mind as the more righteous, the more italist, the more vital, but forgetting the actual thing of uniting the people. As His Majesty say, we are all members of a human race. Now, when we look at that within itself, the human race encompasses everyone, basically, and we've seen a great rise amongst the Europeans, the white Europeans in Rastafari, the Chinese, the Japanese, a lot of the Asians and so forth are embracing Rastafari, whilst a lot of our, especially the Caribbeanites and certain ones in Africa, they've taken Rasta on a very personal manner and don't want to be seen within the human race, and bringing that unification of first of all Africans, because we have even seen tribalism coming in certain parts, and again, like trying to be the chosen one, you know what I'm saying? So you see what I'm saying, right? So we've got to kind of pass this kind of emergence of the divisions that are on these kind of grounds. Rastafari has brought a lot of ones into realization of self, but there's ones who have taken it because they jump on the bandwagon more as an alternative to trying to fight, because they couldn't get jobs or they couldn't get this way and they couldn't uplift themselves. Rasta became another alternative way. This is why they took it more in a recreational manner, because of the use of the ganja and so forth, rather than the looking at the seriousness of coming together as a people, looking at the plight of our people on a whole, and bringing that unity to develop and bring a better life for our children. And that's, where I'm looking at Rastafari now.
Well, there's great wisdom that you have shared there, because I thought these struggles are not only in the greater society and other aspects of our economy, but also it's quite interesting to find the developments that are happening there. But I'm very curious to know and hear from you, what's your take with regards to the spirit amongst the young people, especially on the continent, as far as volunteerism and community building? Because I look at your life and your story and your journey. What strikes me the most is your selflessness, how much you've given yourself to the continent and to uplift other people. You have not done this for yourself, you don't beat your own drum, but a lot of artists, some don't acknowledge, some don't say, but you have done so much for the youths in Manzini, for the youths in Maputo, in Botswana, and in Zimbabwe. Do you think young people today have the same drive and desire to build their communities and volunteer and empower others?
I feel there is still a strength that is coming now from a lot of youths who are now starting to realize their real plight, especially within the society. It's not so much embracing Rastafari on that liberation mode and getting involved, but there is a way now that a lot of young people are trying to say how better can they develop Africa.
So yeah, now shifting to your music, you've been leading the Crucial Mix for years. You've been doing the Bob Marley commemoration events. You've worked with so many artists, but I think the moment where everybody started really paying attention and noticing you was when you collaborated with Isaac Chirwa on that hit track, Utando Kuwe. Could you relive that moment, you and Isaac Chirwa working on that track, and it became a national hit?
Well, with Isaac, in a way, it kind of started on a mystical link up. When I came into the first time when I visited Zimbabwe, the first show I actually did at Harare Gardens was I was actually picked up from my brethren's yard, Solo Chiweshi's yard in Westwood. Right. And then by the police, some of them were, I think one of them was a station commander. He just came and he says, Rasta, you must come with us. Wow. And then I says, okay. It's cutting again.
Yeah, but we can hear you.
Right?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. So then it says, so I said, okay, fine. We jumped in. Yeah. So like I said, we had the police now, they took us to Harare Gardens. Mm-hmm. Then we arrived there, I found the gardens was packed with people, and they took us backstage. This is where the stage was, where now Theatre in the Park is. And there I found there was a few of ministers, dignitaries, and so forth backstage. They were braaiing, they were drinking, everything, and so forth and thing. Then they asked me now, can you go on stage and just do something for us? That time, it was Job's Connection band that was playing, and Isaac Chirwa was very much was playing with the band. And that time now, I just asked them if you can play. They asked me what any particular song. I says, just play and we'll jam. And yeah, hey, we got the people up and dancing, and it was a joy. Then from there, it started to do some little work with Isaac. After I'd done a tour with the Ilanga band, Then myself, Munya Brown, and Isaac, we started putting together, actually, it was the start of putting together Transit and the Transit crew. So before that, you see, Isaac was doing his own projects and so forth. So he asked me if I can help him with Utanda Uwe, also with the video. And, you know, I was very much glad to help him. And, you know, it took off from there. A lot of people now were thinking I was Isaac Chua. Even now, people still calling me Isaac Chua, you know. But, you know, it was, for me, it was great because I love dancing and, you know, I love the song what Isaac did, and, you know, it was a great pleasure for me to work with him on that.
Wow, great. Fast forward, you've organized several Bob Marley commemoration events. You also worked, I remember the first time that I met you, you may not remember this, but it was in 1999, and I was still doing my Form 4, and it was the International Festival of the Arts. And it was actually a day before, days before the festival started, but they were already setting up. And you came through and you asked me, where is the Coca-Cola stage? You know, which one is the Coca-Cola stage? And because of the accent, I couldn't understand. But I was also starstruck. I was like, yo, this thing, when we see on TV. Yeah, but you have done so many events, so many concerts, so many projects, worked with so many artists in Zimbabwe. But you also continue to make a lot of music with Crucial Mix. How has been that musical journey, that musical experience, and what's your takeoff from what you see musically in Zimbabwe right now from those years?
Well, with Crucial Mix, starting Transit, then, you know, the main reason why we started Transit was after the working with Ilanga, there was a little vibes between the two Browns, Andy Brown and Munya Brown. And what I saw was that Munya wanted to get a little more stronger into playing reggae, whilst Ilanga already had created a nice image for themselves. And I really love the music that Ilanga was playing with Don Gumbo and Andy Brown, and, you know, the way that they had that also back in Busin Rube and Comrade Ching's, the variety of Zimbabwean music that they were pushing. I was saying to them, no, there's no real reason for them to be changing to suit us. So I said it would be good if we could build a band that was able to back other artists that may be coming into the country and help to develop the local reggae artists. And that way, you know, we're there to back artists, because I was also coming from that discipline where most of the artists couldn't afford to build their own band or work with a band. So, you know, if a band was able to back them, then, you know, it helped them a lot. So that's how Transit was. Like we said, the band was Transit, but the artists that came in were in transit, so that, you know, it helped them to build their career, and then they move on and another set of artists would come through. After Transit went to Japan and returned, there was a little vibrant split up amongst them. And then I had already started the Seven Seals and so forth. And then I decided to build up Crucial Mix. Why I called it Crucial Mix, because it was a mixture of all the artists that came through. And, you know, I just love to see artists perform. That's one of the reasons why, as well as a sound engineer, I could spend hours just working with the sound, trying to make sure that they also sound good. Sometimes it was difficult because sometimes the equipment wasn't up to scratch, but you know, it was a joy for me just watching artists performing live on stage, because I never really saw myself as becoming no real superstar, maybe because of being in the industry from a young age. And there were certain things of my personal discipline as a Rasta. I was more of an edutainer than just an entertainer. So I was more into, you know, trying to use my music, my art to educate, to help to develop, rather than just to make money and become a superstar. And where I could help others in the journey, then, you know, it gave me great pleasure, you know, to do that.
Wow. That is great. Looking at the music scene in Zimbabwe right now, what's your feeling? We've been a reggae dancehall country since before independence, and Bob Marley coming through, you know, the momentum built up with sound systems. Now, the biggest genre in the country is Zim dancehall, and reggae music seems not to be getting so much of space as it did maybe in the yesteryears. What's your feeling with regard to the Zimbabwean music industry right now when you look back?
Well, personally, I support the Zim dancehall to the level of it has created a genre within a genre in terms of reggae music, and the genre of Zim dancehall gives Zimbabwean artists a way of doing something which Zimbabweans can directly identify with, and can actually develop it to the levels where, like now, as what we did with reggae music, it wasn't just the point of when reggae music was created, it wasn't just for the point of creating the music, but also it became an industry which helped to create more jobs, helped creative people to create brands and so forth in clothing, in various paraphernalia, in also building awareness in what was going on within their communities and so forth. Because music also, you find that we have our social commentators using the music as a vehicle to put through their messages. So the downside, yes, you will have ones and ones over commercializing and using what we would say the profanities and so forth, mainly because, again, music has in certain areas, like for the nightclubs, for the bars and so forth, where it encourages drunkenness, drug abuse, and even prostitution and so forth. That's the over commercial side where music is used per se. It's not just reggae music, but all music is actually exploited in that manner. But when we look at the upside, it's basically giving more employment to artists, more, it's opened a more creative space for them lyrically, and you find that some of the producers are finding new ways of creating new rhythms and beats as well. So, you know, I encourage that in terms of Zim dancehall. There is also a strong movement within Zim reggae, not reggae, but Zim reggae. And there's quite a few artists that are very much rootical artists and have some good lyrics. And also there's a lot of nice Zim lovers as well, lovers rock. So it's just, if the media can work with them as much as they work with the Zim dancehall, then there can be a little bit more equal levels where it comes to the business side as well. Because there's a lot of mature thinking people that love reggae and Zim reggae. And artists like Manix and Jobless and so forth, you know, they're doing quite well with Zim reggae in itself.
Wow. And you mentioned the media then. You have also worked in the media before. Rockers Vibes
Yes.
was a big show. We all connected to the show. And before you left the baton in the hands of, I remember there was Dr. Dredd and also Winky D, you know, who then became a mega star, you know.
Yeah.
Your memories of those days, and Lab Jones also hosted the show at some point.
Well, basically it was actually Love Jones that asked me to take on the show. He felt that it needed that flavor of like a Yardie and more information of reggae music and consciousness. So that's why now I more came in, and it worked a lot more for the show. Unfortunately, there were certain people, some of the churches were a little bit against it because...
oh, really?
Yeah, actually one of the main reasons why the show was stopped, the minister Jonathan Moyo and certain of the churches, they felt that they says, no, they can't allow for reggae and Rasta to be too popular in Zimbabwe. So that was the main reason why I was actually taken off air. And it wasn't just the Rockers Vibes, I had also just started the radio program as well. You see, wow. So it was mainly that kind of bias that we were still fighting. You see, so, you know.
Wow, that is sad, because I've spoken to some Bira players, they've also said the same thing, that they cannot get their music on radio, mainly because the churches who are possibly, you know, buying a lot of airtime dictate what happens and what plays on radio.
Well, also one of the reasons why it became difficult to use Harare Gardens for continuing with the Bob Marley commemoration and doing more shows and so forth was the churches started to book up the venue to make it hard for us and other local promoters to use the venue. And a lot of the venues were also being, what we used to use, were being now taken over by the churches. Mostly, one of the ways they would be looking at the music as heathenistic and, you know, leading people astray, but, you know, they use reggae rhythms in their gospel music. They use, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So with us, I've got no problem with spirituality, and I don't really outrightly go and fight against the churches. But I know, you see, colonization, slavery, was started and promoted through the churches, both the Christian and Muslim churches. Colonization, remember, look at it. Most of the land is still owned by churches. We were bought and sold by the churches. The first slave ship that landed on the West Coast and the Gold Coast was called SS Jesus. You see, so where I know that some of the bishops and so forth and pastors are afraid that some of the real truths would come out. So, you know, they would fight against us in their ways. But, you know, you can't really stop the music from playing. And they themselves are playing the rhythm, like I said. Music is a vehicle. And the lyrical content is how people use the vehicle to move with it. So, you know, and the vibration of music is what captivates the people. And this is what reggae music was doing. It had that natural vibration that people could naturally warm to. And it's a very easy music for ones to create lyrics, more their positive lyrics, and feel free to express themselves on. So, and that's how hip hop actually came out of reggae music, from the drum and bass, from the dub side of it. So, you know, what we are saying is just, you know, it's the positive vibrations that we want to promote.
Wow. Blessed. Let's talk about, before we end, I wanted to talk about the Trevor Hall legacy. What would you want that legacy to be?
Well, in all things, it's just for ones who feel that the good that I've done or what I've inspired them to do, they can continue and to help others to do good and uplift, because our main aim is to uplift, build Africa to where it was before slavery and colonization, because Africa was the first civilization. It is still the civilization that we are still the main inventors, innovators. We are the ones that are still needed. The African people are the greatest asset to the world right now. And for our people to be more proud and more self-reliant and you know, self-reliant but not selfish. You see what I'm saying?
That's powerful. So that self-reliant but not selfish.
True. So that we can build and work together as one African family. So basically, all I want to try to do is to live good and let good always over the evil that is creating the scourge amongst us in this world. I give thanks. Well, at the moment, we're planning for what we call the AARG, which is the All Africa Rastafari Gathering.
Great.
The All Africa Rastafari Gathering, it's this year it's going to be more online. Mm-hmm. The basis of the gathering is more for uplifting ones and creating a market on the continent for brand-made African products. And especially for the Rastafari to be able to push their brand-made products. So we're creating our own open market online, and we'll be starting the webinar from the 22nd to the 25th. And then here in Cape Town, we'll be having a Traders Day on the 26th. On the 27th, we'll be doing an Elders Banquet. And then on the 28th, we'll be having the Cape Town Sunsplash. And that will be all live, but then we'll be doing live streaming from that. So I'll send through the links of that. And this is where we're trying to encourage ones to be more industrious and get ones to be buying more brand-made African products and try to keep our money within our communities rather than weakening ourselves and always buying out. And then, you know, we don't have our own market. And trying to also link up with the African free trade market and get more and more African brand products on the market locally. What we have done, like we say, we've got the AARG, which is the All Africa Rastafari Gathering. Now, the Rastafari Gathering is more for the building, uplifting, and creative of an African buying and selling market for brand-made products. With the Rastafari community, the Pan-African community, we're looking at promoting our brand-made products throughout the continent, creating network, like now with the lockdown, seeing the situation of now doing serious business online. We're taking that up by having a webinar, which will be from the 22nd of November to the 25th of November, which will be a conference on marketing and production, branding. We'll be getting people also from government giving us a heads up on the trading aspects, basically what to do about importing and exporting our goods and so forth. Also getting, doing workshops with certain ones that can help ones to do online business and so forth. And building up to the point where we can even create our own cryptocurrency. One of the main things is so that we can create our own market economy amongst ourselves and try to use that to help with the development of the continent and kind of break the barriers of the borders and so forth amongst us so that we have a more freer trading links online as well then physically going across borders.
Well, thank you so much, Elder. I really appreciate it. A lot of technical challenges, but you know, you reminded me of the perseverance and the drive and the spirit that lives in you. You know, the spirit not to give up. You know, moving from one country to the other and being determined to empower many youths. And I must say, I'm also a product of your inspiration. Watching you on TV, watching you promote different events, attending the Bob Marley commemoration, and what you've done for tons of Zimbabwean artists and artists across the continent, for me, inspires me in a major way. I really appreciate to just have this honor to speak to you.
I appreciate love what you have said, and it gives I as well a little more encouragement as well to continue with the works, knowing that, you know, I'm inspiring ones like yourself, Don Dada, and others. And, you know, we're all here to try to make a better world for everyone else. So, you know, it's just blessed love, and may all the blessings from the Most High be upon you to continue with your works.
Thank you so much to those that are watching the program earGROUND. My name is Plot Mhako. I had my co-host Don Dada. Apparently, in the last 10 minutes, we lost connection to him, but definitely, is one guy who makes a lot of the things happen behind the scenes. He has done so much for the platform, and I really appreciate him. And to Leila, thank you so much. Leila Gibbons, thank you so much for the support and making this connection possible. I really, really appreciate. Elder, thank you so much. I appreciate so much.
Blessed love, my brother.
Blessed.
I appreciate you. Give thanks and Isis, your guide and protection in all you do.
Blessed. Blessings to everybody who's been watching. Until next time, remember, earGROUND is the platform. I'm out.